There's something about Dartmoor, isn't there? The loneliness, the emptiness, the quiet, the vastness of the skies, the bareness of the land, the sense of time passing as you sit and watch the clouds scud by. Looking at a tumbling Tor standing against those clouds, you feel the crushing weight of geological ages. How long did it take the wind to scour away the soil from those cold boulders? How many drops of rain did it take to cut a groove through the granite? How many generations upon generations of plants germinated, reached skywards, flowered, produced seeds of their own, then rotted down into the ground to create the deep black depth of soil beneath? And those deep roots of time reach back into the weird. It's that feeling of unknowable ancientness that dredges up pixies from the peat, reveals ghosts in the gorse. We've got ditches full of witches and black dogs in the bogs. The devil rides the moor at night. Oh, and we've got UFOs too. Of course we do. More than any other episode I've recorded to date, researching this podcast has absolutely blown my mind. Get yourself comfy as I investigate bizarre tales of animal mutilations, try and envisage the vastness of time and space, and freeze my arse off on Great Mist Tour. Welcome back to the Dartmoor podcast. Now, regular viewers of my Not a Podcast will know that I'm a bit of a skeptic, so of course I don't believe in UFOs. But I have to concede that they're more likely than the subject of my previous paranormal perusals: pixies, ghosts and Dartmoor big cats. After all, it's a big old universe. Very big. But we'll get back to that in a moment. Dartmoor's connection to unidentified flying objects is perhaps inevitable. It's got big open skies, a lack of light pollution, it's an active training area for military jets, and it has an abundance of small hallucinogenic mushrooms. But there are some phenomena that can't be explained by the RAF or Liberty Caps. And despite the government's frequent attempts to intimidate me with their low-flying helicopters, they wouldn't silence my investigation. The first bizarre occurrence I'd like to look into is the mystery of Hollowcombe Bottom. Yes, it's a funny name, but the story is actually a pretty disturbing one. In April 1977, in a remote little gully, a family out for a walk thought they saw some ponies having a snooze. But as they got closer, they realised that they'd stumbled upon a massacre. 15 dead Dartmoor ponies lying together along the valley bottom. And the ponies' injuries were horrific, as if they'd been chucked into the air by some irresistible force and cast back down to earth like tumbling dice. When the bodies were examined, they had broken spines and torn arteries. And to add to the strangeness, the bodies were decomposing at an unnaturally fast rate. Many theories were put forward to explain this strange event. Could a sudden surge of water have rushed down the valley and hurled the ponies against the rocks? Maybe an infestation of a parasite caused them to fall apart. Had a farmer disposed of the animals here to avoid the hassle of burying them? It doesn't take a lot of deep thinking to find some problems with all of these theories, and this troubled someone enough to conduct a thorough investigation and even write a book about the incident and its findings. In this tome, sorry folks, I seem to have purchased the last second-hand copy on the internet, Mike Freebury thinks he has the answer. This grisly photo, just about the only one of the incident, reveals, Freebury believes, the unusually fast decomposition of the pony and the strangely bleached skull. With rigour and attention to detail, Freebury picks apart and poo-poos the possibilities of floods, parasites and lazy farmers. Then, with slightly less rigour, concludes that these animals were somehow tossed into the air by turbulence caused by a low-flying alien craft as it rocketed down the valley. For the record, I don't think that's what happened. I'll be revealing my preferred solution later, but I'd like to go and have a look at the place first. Oh, Holicum Bottom is a hard place to get to. Sounds like the start of a blues song. I've had bogs, I've had hills, and I've got gorse. Probably gone a really stupid way. Holicum Bottom turned out to be a very isolated little gully, with a stream gurgling along some rushy ground and stone chats clicking in the gorse. Other than an old stone wall and a fence along one bank, it was pretty nondescript. And in the late spring sun, it didn't feel like an obvious place for the site of extraterrestrial activity. Bright green bog there. It's probably the bad stuff. I'll find where that photo was taken from and find the exact spot. Actually fish in there and everything. Really healthy little stream. Abduct me, you bastards! I think this must be around where I shot picture, because you can see Belliver in the background. Weirdly, there's actually a dead sheep in the spot. Pretty much in the spot anyway. Been there a while. Very bleached jawbone over there as well. In isolation, it would be easy to chuckle at Free Breeze theory and carry on with our lives. But, as his book details, this was to be just the first in a series of bizarre animal mutilations and strange events taking place on the moor over the coming decades. Back in the early 2000s, around nearby Pewtor, Mike and his friend Dave spent many a night vigil looking to the skies and had a range of strange experiences, from a pair of huge glowing eyes without an owner, to ethereal lights in the sky, to a ghostly owl man appearing in their photos. But the most persistent mystery was the spate of sheep mutilations. The centre pages of the book is filled with unpleasant photos of dead sheep who've had their necks inexplicably broken. And, Freebury claims, the post-mortems of these animals revealed some very odd details. The tongues had been surgically removed, eyes were missing, their internal organs had been extracted through their anuses, and many exhibited bizarre cookie-cutter holes in their jaws where the tissue had been cut away so precisely that the incision actually went between the cells. Freeman links this phenomena with the well-documented cases of animal mutilations in the US Deep South, a bastion of common sense and critical thinking, and concludes that these lambees were the victims of alien experimentation. Again, I'll tell you what I think was going on later in the episode. Right, anyway, we're not here to laugh at ufologists. Although I'm a skeptic, I don't like to think I'm unfair, so I'm going to give the idea some thought. Regardless of whether or not they're bothering our livestock, what are the chances that an alien intelligence has visited Earth? Well, to answer this question, we need to get our heads around some big numbers. And as an English teacher, I hate numbers. But bear with me, I'm going to use my favourite resource, Dartmoor, to try and make some sense of it all. Firstly, how far would an alien have to travel if they wanted to come and collect some sheep tongues from Earth? Well, if this grain of sand is our sun and I place it here, then the Earth would be a microscopic dot about an inch away. The edge of our solar system, Pluto, would be about a metre away by this monolith here, the Bear Down Man. There is no intelligent life except us humans, if we even count, in this area. So where is the next nearest star? Our adjacent bit of grit? Alpha Centauri. It's over there, 4 miles away, on the top of the Princetown TV mast. If we want to talk about the distances in the whole of our galaxy, the Milky Way, on this scale, then it's 100,000 miles across. New Zealand is about 10,000 miles from here. So you see, when we start trying to visualise these distances, things get very difficult very quickly. Even using the smallest thing known to man, a sand, to represent the sun, we quickly lose all sense of scale and end up trying to picture 5 return flights to Kiwi land. Even if you could travel at the speed of light, which may indeed be impossible, it would take you 4 years to get here from Alpha Centauri, let alone anywhere else in the galaxy. Now, a lot of you will be nodding along and going, I see where George is going here. He's trying to explain that the distances involved in interstellar, let alone intergalactic travel, are just so vast that it's impossible that anything could make the trip. Well then, let me surprise you by explaining how we can get to the exact opposite conclusion. To do this, we need to think about the number of stars in the galaxy. Well, the Milky Way has about 100 billion stars. Already we're getting into numbers too big for our monkey brains to imagine. You just can't picture that many bananas. But let me try to help. Grass grows with about 10 blades per centimetre square, which makes 100,000 blades of grass in a metre square and 100 billion in a kilometre square. So all the grass you can see from up here by the Bear Down Man, Lidford Tor in the south, the wide valley sides of Coney's Down and Maiden Hill, Summer Hill and Cowsick Head to the north, and Devil's Tor here by our side, is a star in our galaxy. Every blade of grass is a sun with orbiting planets. Right, now you're probably thinking this. OK George, so there's loads of stars. Loads and loads. And logically that would imply that there's loads of other intelligent civilisations out there. But they're still too far away. Even the closest of those grains of sand / blades of grass is on top of the Princetown TV mast. Well, there's one more ingredient we need to add into this cosmic mind mash soup. And that's time. Let me try and demonstrate the timescale I'm talking about here with a cheeky time-lapse. Great Mist Tor, where we begin, represents the formation of Earth about 4.5 billion years ago. We're going to walk about 4.5 kilometres to the end of Merivale Stone Row to demonstrate the events leading to the present day. Well, to start, there's about 1 billion years of chaos. You know the sort of thing. Mountains, volcanoes, noxious gases and boiling oceans. violent geology. Then, sooner than you'd think, at 3.7 billion years ago, just as past George gets to Little Miss Tor, life appears. Well, when I say life, I mean slime. Welcome to the slime age. There's about 2 billion years of slime now. Slime, 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 slime. I'm sure slime isn't the scientific name for it. Slime, 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 slime. Finally, we get to the road and the Four Winds car park and take our jumper off, and we get the first simple multi-celled organisms. Then it's about another half a kilometre before we get things we'd recognise, like jellyfish, then fish and plants, then amphibians and reptiles. And as we get to the start of the Merivale Stone Row, we get dinosaurs, then our first prehistoric birds and mammals, grasses, rodents. The dinosaurs get walloped with the giant space rock, the first monkeys, apes. Now we finally get our first humans of a sort, the Australopithecines. And about a foot from the terminal stone, Homo sapiens, us. But don't get excited, we're just poking stuff with sticks for another 20 centimetres or so. It's only in the last centimetre we invent farming. 3 millimetres from the end is the Bronze Age, when this row was built. The last 2 millimetres see windmills and colosseums and crossbows. And in the last millimetre, in the thickness of the piece of card, we've gone from the horse and cart to the space shuttle, from the quill to the internet, from the eyeglass to AI essays. My point is that the extreme exponential rate of progress is absurd. Where could we be in another millimetre? Or another centimetre? What about another 4 kilometres down the road? Yes, I know, in Tavistock, but what about in another 4 billion years? And there are planets out there in our galaxy almost 3 times as old as Earth. Billions of solar systems and billions of years means that the galaxy has had plenty of time to birth thousands of super-advanced civilizations. Sure, the distances between the stars are huge, but that's no obstacle to unmanned or unaliened probes or artificially intelligent craft. Even a few thousand years of floating through space would be nothing to them. Someone did the numbers, and it would only take a few million years, a couple of metres on our Stone Row scale, for the entire Milky Way to be colonised. So you see, the real mystery of UFOs is why aren't there any? The galaxy should be swarming with intelligent civilizations, teeming with alien explorers, a frothing riot of extra-terrestrial cultures. But instead, when we look up, we are met with cold and empty silence. This great mystery is known as the Fermi paradox, named after the mathematical genius Enrico Fermi, who, in a casual lunchtime conversation with some other brainy folk, voiced this discrepancy between the huge likelihood of aliens visiting Earth and the apparent absence of them. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Fermi paradox isn't really a paradox. Fermi paradox does sound clever to say, though, and if the Dartmoor podcast is about anything, it's about trying to sound clever. So, Fermi paradox it is. Anyway, over the years a number of solutions to the Fermi paradox have been dreamt up, ranging from outright terrifying to darkly humorous to completely depressing. The most famous of these theories, thanks to the mind-bending sci-fi of Cixin Liu, is the dark forest theory. It goes something like this. Advanced alien civilizations, those ones that have had over twice the lifetime of Earth to develop beyond us, would easily have the ability to fly over here and take our lovely green planet and all its resources off our hands. If the history of colonialism on Earth is anything to go by, then we, as the less advanced natives, would be in big trouble. But it gets even worse. Some of these civilizations may possess completely different moralities to us, and some of these would possess terrible weapons of destruction. Think the ability to almost instantaneously destroy an entire solar system by casually thrusting out a tentacle and flicking a switch. This means that any sensible alien race would live in fear of an even more advanced civilization doing away with them. And so the galaxy would turn into a giant game of hide and seek, a dark forest full of hunters looking for prey while trying to remain hidden from predators. Every sufficiently advanced civilization keeps its head, or whatever it has instead of a head, down, and keeps silent lest they give away their location and are destroyed. Hence, when we look at our radar dishes and telescopes in a search for extraterrestrial intelligence, we see nothing. If this rather scary theory of the universe is true, then we should be trying very hard not to draw attention to ourselves by blasting our radio signals into the sky. A more amusing solution to the Fermi paradox is the zoo theory, that advanced aliens are perfectly aware of our existence but are simply observing us from a distance. Perhaps they find us interesting in the way that we might find the workings of an ant-hill interesting. Perhaps they don't want to be seen in case that affects us and somehow interferes with our natural development. Maybe we'll one day make some great technological or cultural leap that will make us worthy of their consideration, and we'll suddenly find ourselves confronted with a galactic federation of aliens wanting to shake hands, or claws, or proboscises, or whatever. Or perhaps, and this is a depressing thought, all civilizations at some point in their development just end up destroying themselves. Maybe there's a cruelly repeating joke that has played out 1 billion times across the Milky Way, where advanced species always develop and use weapons of mass destruction before they develop interstellar flight. Personally, I have a preferred solution to this mystery too, and we'll get there in a bit, along with the puzzle of the poor ponies and the sorry sheep. It was set to be a beautiful evening up on Great Mist Tor, the perfect place to gaze across the moor in all directions and keep an eye out for strange phenomena in the sky. As one of England's last wildernesses, Dartmoor is the perfect place to lie back and look up into the vastness of space. Stare long enough into that ocean of stars and the blackness of the sky becomes not a height, but a depth, an unfathomable depth that you could fall into away from the earth and into the cosmos. As far as I know, I wasn't abducted in the night and woke up to a beautiful Dartmoor morning unprobed. I had one last place to visit on my adventure, Pew Tor, the place where Mark and Dave held their vigils in the early 2000s to try and explain the mysterious sheep mutilations. I know I've been a bit dismissive and snarky about their work, but really I properly respect their empirical approach and dedication to uncovering the truth, no matter how misguided. The moor isn't always as benign and beautiful a place as it was the previous evening for me, and Mike and Dave must have endured a few rough nights out here. It's time for the Grumpy Skeptic roundup. What do I think happened to those ponies and sheep, and what's my 2 pennies worth on the Fermi paradox? Let's start with the ponies. I reckon lightning. There'd been a thunderstorm in the area not that long before the bodies were found, and if the ponies were all hanging around on the wet ground around the river, a nearby bolt could instantly kill the entire herd, inflicting injuries consistent with those seen. Admittedly, no burn marks were recorded, but if you weren't looking for them, and the bodies were already decomposing, I suppose that could be missed. It's not a perfect solution, but then nor is flying saucer turbulence. The oddity of it, I suppose, is why this mystery has endured for almost half a century. The sheep? Well, I've read enough Hardy to know that if sheep are good at one thing, it's randomly dying. Spates of dead sheep is no mystery under any situation. However, if you're looking for a sinister conspiracy, then you don't need to head into space. Freebury, while investigating the mutilations, was in regular contact with the local farmer who owned the majority of the sheep, and as I was reading, her name kept ringing a bell. Mary Alford. Where had I heard that before? Well, exactly around this time, Mrs. Alford was persona non grata on Dartmoor, the Darwall of her day. She had recently won a case to remove the right-of-way around the beautiful and popular Vixen Tor, making her a lot of enemies. I'm currently pretty angry with her myself, having had to walk all the way up and down along the road to get to Pewtor rather than simply cutting through this lovely patch of moorland. Not angry enough to take revenge by murdering her sheep, of course, but then maybe someone was. But what about the strange mutilations? Well, I don't think they're that strange. The moor is full of scavengers, crows, ravens, foxes, rats. And what are these animals' favourite bits? The eyes and the tongue. The holes in the jaw are clearly just where they've burrowed in to get at it. And without wanting to get too graphic, for many small scavengers, the best way to the tasty internal organs of a dead sheep is not through the thick fleece, but via the bum hole. So the injuries to that area don't surprise me either. As for the apparent surgical nature of the incisions, Robert T. Carroll, a skeptic with more time and a stronger stomach than me, solved that one decades ago, when similar claims were being peddled in the US. He made a scientific observation of a dead cow decomposing, and as the body of the dead bovine dehydrated, certain tissues shrank and deformed and, you guessed it, looked like they'd been cleanly cut rather than pecked and gnawed at. Look, I can't prove it's not aliens, but I think this is more likely. So on to our final mystery, the Fermi paradox. How can a galaxy that's 13.5 billion years old and composed of 100 billion stars not be bursting with ancient life, or at least swarms of self-replicating artificially intelligent machines? The odds are ridiculously small that we're alone. Except that we don't know the odds. Yes, there's 100 billion stars. But what if the specific conditions necessary to create life, let alone self-conscious life, are 200 billion to 1? Or more? We literally have a sample size of 1. All life on Earth may have come from one extraordinarily unlikely moment. Some combination of temperatures and chemicals and pressures and who knows what. Yes, but we're alive, we're here, how unlikely can it be? Well, you're only able to ask that question because you are the ones here. It's a bit of a mind scrambler, but I'm afraid it doesn't tell us anything about the likelihood of life. So it seems to me that until we have any further data, then we just have to admit we have no idea if other life in our galaxy is likely or not. Maybe it's rarer than we could even imagine. And if that's true, then that might seem like a sad discovery. That we really are alone in this vast, vast galaxy, perhaps even in the whole vaster, vaster universe. But on the flip side, it makes us pretty damn special. Perhaps we are the infinitesimally small spark in the infinite dark, and what we do is literally the only thing that has ever mattered, or ever will. Thanks for watching, everyone. The truth is out there. See you next time.